Good morning, my name's Rowlands. I'm the dairy manager here in Bodnant. The dairy itself was totally made from scratch in the beginning of the whole Bodnant planning period. It was a very interesting and challenging project to get involved with because we were starting from a totally blank canvas. It wasn't just a case of thinking we'll make some cheese and see what happens. We had to go through quite a long process to establish what type of cheese we would be making. For example, if we went into the cheddar market, well, nearly 70% plus of the cheese that's sold in the UK is all cheddar. So it's a very crowded market to launch into as a beginner. So we had several surveys done locally and a few polls done to just gauge what type of cheese people preferred, and then to work out if we can make it, and B, to set up the actual dairy itself on those processes. The surveys all came back, and the general consensus was that apart from cheddar, the general territorial type cheeses are then the second in line, and those cover Double Gloucester, Red Leicester, Cheshire. And the decision was made that we would follow the Cheshire route because of the historical link between the border counties of Cheshire and here in North Wales. We developed that cheese with the facilities in Llangefni in Menebridge. But prior to that, we then had to work the system out to see what sort of equipment we were going to budget ourselves for. Many choices are different ways of manufacturing cheese. We've gone down the artisan route, which is more hands-on, if you like, to a larger manufacturing company. And so we would then have to select the type of equipment we needed. It's obviously a much smaller plant than a big factory base, but obviously we had to make sure that it was efficient, but we were still able to bring out these traditional flavours of an artisan type cheese. We scoured the country to find different suppliers. In the end, we had to go all the way to Germany to get these particular equipment because virtually all the manufacturing industry now has moved out of the UK and they're all in the continent. And from then on, the planning obviously started of how to design the actual dairy itself, getting the endless arguments of getting power, hot water, drains, everything else that comes into planning to start. Because we're basically starting with an empty room, and we had to decide where each wall went. So it was a complicated and sometimes frustrating start. Once we decided the type of cheese we were going to make, we had to balance out the size of the equipment, and the main thing is the actual size of your cheese store, because to keep the temperature and humidity in the cheese store to make sure that your cheese lasts anywhere from 3 months to 9 months or longer for the different types of cheeses. It's quite important, because if you make something today, you probably won't see what it tastes like until about 3 months. So if you get your storage wrong, you're going to have a very expensive mess on your hands. So on that, we just give you a little bit of a detour so you can actually go and have a look at what the actual cheese store looks like and what we actually make. And so then we'll carry on. Okay, so this is our cheese store. As I mentioned earlier, it's quite important that you have get your cheese store sorted out. it's just not making the cheese. The process of maturing the cheese is probably as important, if not more important, than the beginning bit. So we have to control the temperatures of the cheese and the moisture, because it's basically to make sure that the type of cheese we do in bandage, unless you keep the moisture in the atmosphere, the cheese would actually just dry up and turn into a chalk, if you like. So we have to balance the temperature. We keep the temperature here between 9 and 11 degrees and keep the humidity up to 90 degrees. So the cheeses start their life here at about a day old. They've been bandaged, they come here, they're turned every day by hand for the first 3 to 4 weeks. Then after they're a month old, we then turn them once a week. But basically every piece of cheese here gets turned at least once a week. We all draw a short straw who has to do that. But as I say, there was a major part of any planning we were going to do on the cheese side, because obviously we have to make sure that we don't overproduce, or you get low racks of cheese and nobody wants it. So it's a balance of how much we can produce and obviously how much cheese we can sell out into the marketplace. As you say, not very exciting, and the smell, you do get used to it, honestly, but after a few days. It's the ammonia smell that comes out of the cheese, the whey, it's all the impact of the molds and the yeast. They all start to attack each other, and then that's where you get this lovely aroma. The door's been open today. If you opened it first thing in the morning, you might, it does wake you up a bit.
So how long are these in here for then?
Generally between 3 to 9 months. We grade them and test them every couple of months just to make sure that we're on the right track flavour-wise.
And is the reason why you're storing wood and not metal?
Wood, because the wood is more absorbent. Not for these types of teeth, because they're bandaged. They drain freely. So the type of cheese we do, you'll get the loss of moisture. You roughly get, just calculating, about 16% in moisture loss from when we start and put it in and fresh to when it's gone to about 3 months old. And so we use wood basically. If they were on stainless steel, you'd have just a continuous puddle of whey, and it's actually, although there's a lot of arguments between the authorities what you need to have, but it actually does let this type of cheese develop a lot more.
And what's one of them worth, money-wise?
Ooh. Retail, it's about £210.
Quite a bit of money here.
Yeah, so we have to make sure the fridge is working every day, just in case.
I think it's a backup system.
There's a backup system, and it's all the monitoring systems. So
So it's here all the time.
yeah, so there's an alarm, a big alarm if it goes off.
Some smashing bread
Is it
there.
just full fat milk that you use, isn't it?
Yes, just a full fat milk, cow's milk. So.
Are you using any of the A2?
Not specifically, but we're actually quite fortunate. The farm that we get our milk from, they've got a high percentage of that in the milk, but
It's not something that you're advertising?
no. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Originally, as I say, the setup was to make a small dairy that would produce milk, cream, butter, and cheese for the actual site itself, and develop a cheese range that we could sell externally as well. We started off, as I mentioned earlier, on the Cheshire route. And because we have our own deli, we were able to gauge people's opinions. And the general opinion was, yes, Cheshire's a cheese we buy, but not in any great amounts. So panic buttons started to set in, so we would have to look at producing a different type of cheese. So we did a few testers, and we ended up with the Aberwen cheese, which is still has the acidity of a dry territorial type cheese, but with the creaminess and just the more cheddar-like texture. And it seems to have gone down well in the deli, and so that's the process we're developed. It's taken us 2 years, obviously, because we've started from nothing, and to develop and put a new cheese out into the market, which is quite a crowded market. It's quite hard work. We're obviously on the artisan side of cheese making, and that's more towards the delis and the restaurants and on that side. So our process at the moment, which is where we're working hard on now, is the actual wholesale of the cheese itself. And it's we're fortunate at the moment. We're selling cheese in Yorkshire, Lancashire, the Midlands, Scotland. Can't crack London at the moment, but and then obviously in Wales as well. We focus on actual delis, and through them we're connected to individual cheese wholesalers. So they obviously are able to reach more customers than we do. We have a wholesale side ourselves for local restaurants, shops, so we're trying to spread the word as much as we can. And onto that, we sell the cheeses in, well, several different types, as in a whole round, as you all saw there. We also then cut them obviously in wheels or half wheels, really depends what the customers want. And then the latest version is going down to the traditional wedge. And so the design was done. We carry everything on the Bodnant logo, so that connects the Bodnant site and the Bodnant food side together. So we're quite happy with our design, and it seems to have gone down quite well. Again, we were able to trial these in the deli, and we found that the uptake was about 20 to 30% more cheese was sold through the deli once we put these out. So it's been an effective tool. Other ways, obviously, of selling, we go onto the food festival and food show arena, which is sometimes we'll be down in Cardiff next weekend. We've just been in Shrewsbury last weekend, then Royal Welsh, so it's a long list of shows that we'll be doing for the next 2 or 3 months. As I say, the cheeses we make is Aberwen. That is our 3 to 5 month old. Then we do what we call an extra mature version, which is obviously from 6 months up to 9. We then went to look for producing a slightly different cheese. I've got a strange penchant for coloured cheese, so you can blame me for this. Probably working too long with Peredur in South Carolina Creameries. So we produced that. It's basically a quick eating cheese, no more than 3 months old. It's good at cooking because we keep the fat into all the fat in our cheese, and so again that has developed from having chefs and kitchens here, so they have been able to give us their opinion on how it reacts when it's cooking. And then the newest version is the extra mature that we now smoke, and it's smoked with beech. I've been told it's windfall beech, and it's at the moment it's smoked in Chirk because we don't have the facilities here. We took our time to develop that because our cheese is a little bit different to the norm. We found out that we couldn't balance it with oak. It became quite a harsh flavour to it, and we're quite lucky. The smokehouse in Chirk, they experimented with quite a few different types of wood, and the beech seemed to come up trumps for us. But we can't do any of this without actual milk, obviously. And so here at Bodnant, we're quite fortunate. We have a local farmer, which is basically half a mile down the road, across the bridge, and you're there. So we are able to source our milk from a single farm, which obviously helps us throughout the year to have a consistent quality and make. As I say, we don't take anything out of our milk. We keep all the fat in. There are some months in the winter where we have a bit of cream floating about, excess cream, but it gives us, we developed the cheese because we had the quality of milk that our farmer produces in Talacamnicha. We developed the cheese to work around that, to try and make sure that we keep the creaminess, buttery flavour in the cheese. Well, I hope you all tasted that in the cheese. And we look at the target of keeping the fat to a 4% fat and about 3.4 protein. That just gives you what we think is the ideal combination to produce the cheese we have. We get it fresh, delivered first thing in the morning, so it's 6 o'clock start here, 5 o'clock for me. But the freshness of the milk obviously lends to the flavour and the taste of the area. We then produce, as I say, 6 o'clock in the morning. So the process is it's pasteurised milk. So we pasteurize up to 72 degrees, and it goes into the cheese vat. We add our cultures, and then roughly about an hour and a half, it's cultured and ripens. We then add the rennet to get the cheese to go into the curds and whey mode. And then after about another hour, there's a lot of waiting time when you make cheese, the first bit anyway. When the set is done, we then cut the cheese into about a centimetre cube, and then leave it to settle. Basically, the curds and whey separate. Then we take off the whey. Our whey is actually returned back to the farm. It goes into their slurry pit and is used as to spread on the land, which is, if you like, full circle. Milk comes and it goes back into the process of producing grass. Then once we let the curds set, test the acidity to the level of our cheese. Every cheese has a different set point of how high or how low your acidity level is. As soon as we reach that target, we salt the cheese. Jumped ahead. We mill the cheese, then salt the cheese, and then it's hand filled into molds. We leave it for 24 hours in the cheese press, and then the following morning, take them all out, hand bandage, tag them up, mark them up, and then later on in that day, they're transferred into the actual cheese stores itself. And then, as you saw before, that's the process we actually follow here. Future projects, I've been told I need to think about future projects on site. Part of it is to look at what other cheese range we can look at, because we've got a system that's set up for hard cheese. Our process wouldn't really go into making soft, short life cheese. So we're looking at different traditional types of cheese that are out there at the moment, and possibly put our own twist on that as well. But we're also looking actually on the other side of the dairy to look at making different products from the butter, the cream into cheese. So it's an ongoing process which will take a few tests and trials to see if we're on the right track or it's another scrapped idea. As I say, we're trying to work to get products for the actual site itself, and most of them would be, Gwyndaf, I think, mentioned about his fudge. So it's just product that can be sold on site, and then hopefully if there is a larger market for that, we can then sell it into wholesale. So yes, so in a nutshell, that's what we do in the Bodnan Dairy. I hope you like the cheese samples. There's a bit more there if you would like some more. But thank you very much.
Thank you.